we can get on and start. So good morning, everybody. Today we're looking at the April 2024 SPS controls for animal products. I'll take you through very quickly the key aspects of the border target operating model, and then focusing on border control posts and fees, what happens at a BCP. I'm delighted to say we have Patricia Gonzalez, who's worked for several years at the seaport at Southampton. Then looking at groupage, transits and trusted trader and the other areas of engagement and resources we have to help you get through the April SPS 2024 changes. And at the end of the slides, we, as usual, will have a Q&A. Next slide, please. Great. So I'm Nicola Kelly. I work at the Communications and Engagements team at BBTP DEFRA. I'm delighted, as I said, that Patricia Gonzalez, who's the import technical lead at Evelyn Jones, will be joining us too. And then we have our DEFRA leads, John Briggs, Russell Reefer and Arian Brower, and Sarah Johns, our comms and engagement colleague, will be getting the Q&A panel together with Ken. Next chart, please. So we'd very much like you to get involved in our polls. These are really important in helping us gauge where traders are in terms of their readiness for the January SPS controls and April SPS controls that will take place in 2024 next year. So you'll see three polls popping up throughout this session. They're all anonymous, and do get involved because it will help us deliver information much more effectively to you. Next slide, please. So the first question in the poll, please do get involved. It should be up there for you. How well does your organisation understand the changes to import controls? And you have a variety of answers. Don't think too long and hard about it, just your gut reaction, and press submit. Thank you for doing this. It's so helpful for us, and it will help us to build a picture up and see where we feel there might be gaps and where we can shape our engagement to meet your needs better. So one of those answers, press submit. And as I say, it's all anonymous. Next slide, please. So we will have a Q&A at the end, as we said. If you look at the top of your screen, you'll see that on the black area Q&A, and that's where you'll press and you can put in some Q&A questions there. And you can upvote the ones you'd like to see answered as well, if there's already a question in there that you'd like to have answered. Next slide, please. So the border target operating model, as we all know, from the 29th of August 2023, it was published. It sets out our new approach to safety and security controls that apply to all imports and the sanitary and phytosanitary controls for animal products and plant products at the border. It was developed following extensive engagement with the border industry and businesses across the UK, and it incorporates feedback from the draft border target operating model. In your email invite, you have all the key links that you'll need, and it includes a link to the border target operating model, which is in the gov.uk page. So please do go look at the border target operating model. There's a lot of information there, and it's very useful. But we're going to take you through the key aspects now for the April 2024 changes. Next slide, please. So import controls for animal products. Just give you an overview of the documentary and physical checks from the 30th of April 2024. Next slide. Great. So what changes will you see? Starting from the left-hand side, Imports from the EU and EFTA countries except Ireland. For all imports of animal products that are subject to SPS controls, these must enter Great Britain via a port of entry with a border control post designated for that type of commodity. Documentary and risk-based identity and physical checks for medium risk products will begin to take place at BCPs. There'll be no routine checks for low-risk animal products, but these will be subject to intelligence-led interventions. Products currently exempt from SPS controls will continue to be exempt from these controls. For example, exempt commodity products.
Composite products.
Composite products. So for imports from non-EU and EFTA, rest of world countries, we're looking at the simplification of imports from non-EU countries, including the removal of health certification and routine checks on low-risk animal products. And these will be subject to import notifications and intelligence-led interventions. There'll be a reduction of physical and identity checks on medium-risk animal products from non-EU countries. Next slide, please. So from the 30th of April 2024, what action will you need to take? Well, if you're an importer who's a person responsible for the load for EU or EFTA imports, you'll need to check that your chosen port of entry has a BCP or border control point designated for the product you're importing. You'll need to make sure you're following the correct process for the type of product you're importing. Again, all guidance is on gov.uk. Make sure all documentation is provided, including uploading the health certificate and IUU documents to the import notification that you've created and submitted in IPAFs. Make sure that all the relevant contact details are included in the import notification in case the consignment's called for checks at the BCP, particularly if you're the person responsible for the load and the transporter. Next slide, please. So for the island of Ireland, checks on Irish and EU goods, i.e. not Northern Ireland qualifying goods, will not commence earlier than the 31st of October 2024, and these goods can continue to enter via any Great Britain seaport or airport until checks commence. Northern Ireland qualifying goods will continue to have unfettered access, whether they're moved directly from Northern Ireland to Great Britain or indirectly via Ireland. And as a reminder, the 31st of January 2024, import notifications submitted via IPAFs are required at least one working day in advance of Irish and EU goods, so non-Northern Ireland qualifying goods, arriving from the island of Ireland into a GB port of entry, together with any required documentation such as a health certificate for medium risk products or commercial documents for low risk products. Next slide, please. So let's have a look at the changes at the border control points and a little more information about charging. So the border control post, this is an inspection post, BCP. It's designated and approved in line with Great Britain legislation for carrying out checks on animals and animal products arriving from third countries at the GB border. Checks are carried out to protect animal and public health and animal welfare. BCPs designated for specific products and temperature requirements have staff trained in handling these products. Next slide, please. So you'll find there's specific codes for each BCP post, which will help you work out whether they will accept the commodities that you are dealing with. So POA means products of animal origin, composite products, germinal products, animal byproducts, hay and straw. PNAO means products of non-animal origin. NHC means products not for human consumption. So that will be ABP, animal byproducts. HC means products for human consumption, POAO. NT means no temperature requirement. T means frozen and chilled products, etc. There are some BCPs that have additional specifications. For example, they might deal with packed products only, fishery products, liquid in bulk only. So check which BCP designated post will be the one you need to use. Next slide, please. So there is a map for BCPs that you can find on gov.uk, and it is being updated whenever new BCPs are designated and approved. So keep checking, and you can find out, plan your route by looking at the BCP map. Next slide. Great. Border control post charging. So just as an overview, as we know, government-run border control posts, privately run border control posts, local authorities and port health authorities can all apply charges for handling commodities. These offset the running and manning costs of the examination facilities, as well as other costs including the positioning of consignments ready for inspection. Government-run BCPs. So talking about government-run BCPs, as you probably know, we've been analysing responses to the consultation arrangements at government-run border control posts in England, and we're hoping to publish an update very shortly. For private sector companies that operate BCPs at airports and maritime ports, these can levy charges for services, but this is a commercial decision for each BCP operator, so you'll need to contact them directly for details. Animal Plant Health Agency also has separate charges for official controls on live animals, plant and plant products. Next slide, please. And port health charges are also official controls that can be undertaken on animal products, high-risk food not of animal origin, and certain certification checks on fish products, and organic products. So for these port health charges, these controls will continue to be financed by charges on a full cost recovery basis. They'll be calculated, set, collected and published by individual port health functions, and the fees will be calculated for low risk, medium risk and high risk commodities. So the charge is proportionate to the level of risk and the control of activity. Checks and inspections. So there's various types of checks that can be carried out on a consignment at a border control post. We have documentary checks, a check that document requirements have been met, for example, where a health certificate is required, and any documents need to have been provided about the consignment consistent with the import notification. An identity check is a check that the commodity's identification marks, stamps and other necessary product or product information conform to the declaration on the health certificate or documentation. A physical check is a check where the inspector physically examines the product. It may include sampling the product to look for pathogenic microorganisms or illegal contaminants, such as veterinary drug residues or heavy metals. And then there are transit checks. Some consignments in transit through Great Britain or using Great Britain as a land bridge may require official seals to be checked on entry to GB. Next slide. Great. So checks for germinal products from the EU. Germinal products are high-risk animal products, and so they are already subject to import controls. From the 31st of January 2024, germinal products will continue to require health certificates and pre-notification on IPAFs with a change in formation from IMP to CHED. 100% documentary checks will continue as now, with physical inspections at destination as required. From the 30th of April 2024, germinal products will be required to enter Great Britain via an appropriately designated border control post. The relevant Port Health Authority will conduct 100% documentary, ID and physical inspections on germinal products at the BCP. Next slide, please. So, illegal, unreported and unregulated IUU documentation. The UK's illegal, unreported and unregulated, or IUU, fishing requirements came into effect for EU imports from January 2021 to help combat IUU fishing. IUU fishing documentation, so that's catch certificates, processing statements, evidence of storage, must be sent in advance for all relevant imports to the Port Health Authority. These will need to be uploaded to IPAFs from the 30th of April 2024. Please contact the PHA to find out how far in advance you need to send documents. The minimum timings set in the legislation are 72 hours in advance for imports by sea, 4 hours by rail or air, and 2 hours by road. Next slide, please. PHAs charge a fee to recover costs for checking these documents or, if deemed necessary, for performing a physical examination. These fees are set by individual authorities and will therefore vary. PHAs and the MMO, the Marine Management Organisation, are responsible for enforcing these requirements, and they will take enforcement action where appropriate. The MMO will also undertake retrospective checks of goods allowed to pass the border under a new inland enforcement regime. Under the border TOM, from 30th of April 2024, fish imports will have to enter via a port of entry with an appropriately designated BCP. PHAs will be able to pull consignments in for specific IUU risk-based checks or controls if necessary from that point in time, so from the 30th of April 2024. Please note that the IUU risk-based checks are separate to the SPS risk categories. Next slide, please. So what happens after the checks? After the checks have been completed, the results will be recorded on the import notification. If the consignment is compliant with the SPS controls applied and has customs clearance, it is free to continue to the destination. If the consignment is found to be non-compliant, the PHA will contact you with information about the actions that you may take, such as re-export, destruction, remedial action, or use of the consignment for another purpose in some permitted cases. Next slide, please. So this is the second question on the poll. Please do get involved. It's very important for us to find out how you're feeling, how confident you're feeling, and what sort of stage your organisation is at. So this question, question 2, thinking about the changes your organisation might need to take to get ready for the new import controls, please indicate what stage your organisation is at. So we've got a variety there. It's multiple choice, just choose one and press submit. Again, it's anonymous. It just gives us an impression of where you're at and where you might need some extra help perhaps. This will really help us to tailor our engagement to your needs. So please do get involved. Let's give you a few moments to answer these questions. Just your general impression. What's your stage your organization is at? And again, it's anonymous, so great. Next slide, please. So I'm now delighted to say that we have Patricia Gonzalez, who's the import technical lead at Evelyn Jones. She's been working for many years at the Southampton Seaport, and she's going to take us through what it's like on the ground at a BCP. She has an example of an import medium risk POAO. So I'll just pass you over to Patricia Gonzalez. Patricia, are you able to unmute?
Now I can. Now I can. Hello.
Fabulous. Thanks very much. Yes.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. As Nicolas said, my name is Patricia Gonzalez, and my background is on seaports. That's where I have a lot of experience. I wish I could show you an example of the European Union, but obviously we are not there yet. So I have taken a hypothetical example, and this is where I'm going to take you. If we can have the next slide, please. So the commodity I have chosen is pre-cooked chicken breast fillets, frozen temperature. The country of origin is China. The intended use for human consumption, and is coming by container through a seaport. So I'm not going to teach you a lot of things. I won't be able to teach you exactly how everything goes. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a hint of how does it work once we have taken the decision that this is going to be called for inspection. If we can have the next slide, please. Yeah, what I have done here, I have put just the link to where you will be able to find the steps that were showing the requirements to import the particular product. I've just put the one for pre-cooked chicken, okay? But obviously, depending on the product, it will be a different link. This is the part that the port health officers or official veterinarians will have to do. Once the documentary check is satisfactory, if the product is selected to be called for inspection at the BCP, this is when we will see the first slide, the one before. If we can go back to the slide before, please. This is the product we get, okay? This is when we have called it for inspection. And this is the time we decide if the product has passed the ID and the physical exam. Only a certain amount of products will go through ID exam, and a lower amount of products will go through physical exam. If we can go, please, to no next, but the one after that, please. Thank you very much. This is just a photo of actually Southampton BCP and a container open. This is just a random photo for you to give you an idea how the vet feels or the officers feel when they are doing the inspection. Okay, the consignment is brought to us for physical examination. We first will do the seal check. Okay, that would be part of the physical examination, the ID and physical examination for any consignment traveling in a seal way of transport, either the truck, the trailer, or a container. The first form of ID exam will be to check the seal and check if it is correct against the health certificate, if there is a health certificate. Here I have put a photo of the consignment just arriving. Sometimes we will just do a couple of boxes and do an ID exam. Sometimes we will go one step further. I'm not going to go into the number of consignments we're going to be checking because we are still waiting for a final decision, and it also depends if it's medium risk or high risk. If we can have a look at the next slide, please. Right, that's actually how the inspection room looks like. That is the photo of the product, and that's actually me. That's a photo of myself taking the temperature of the consignment. Among other things, we will check the temperature. We will take the product and, if necessary, defrost it in a microwave. We will check that the product looks okay, smells okay, and more importantly, that it complies with all the requirements, including identification of the product, if it needs an ID mark, if it needs a health mark. At this point, this is when we will check it. Also, if the product seems to be in the right condition, and if it is as described on the product, if there is a full match. So we are expecting to, that's why it's so important that you send all the information in advance. I cannot tell you how important this is. The sooner you send the paperwork, the more time the official veterinarians and the officers will have to check through. Any kind of commercial documents are vital because we get a better idea. If there is any problem, for example, if we have a wrong seal, we will be prepared for it. If there is any kind of discrepancy between commercial documents and the health certification, even before we call the consignment for inspection, we will be able to tackle it and to find out if there is really a problem. It could be from, there are two seals and one was recorded on the commercial documents and another one on the official documents. It could be that it was stopped in another port for whatever reason by customs in another country. All that is perfectly acceptable. All can be sorted. But as I say, the sooner you send all the documents, the better, because I think you can all appreciate that time is money. And if we can deal and we can find the answers and try to sort it out before the consignment arrives, it might be that on the day of the inspection, everything goes fine, everything goes smooth. The problem, for example, with the seal has already been sorted, and we will be able to release the consignment. Obviously, any other issue we find on the day, either there is a mismatch, the documents don't match with the product we have in front of us, or the temperature is not right, or anything else, the consignment will be detained for further investigation. And then depending on the outcome, the consignment will be either allow entry or rejected. I have no time. I was given very, very limited time, so I cannot go into details. What are the two paths? Obviously, if you have any questions, please ask them in the Q&A at the end, and I might be able to give you answers. As I say, finally, once all the checks are done, we will be able to put the outcome on IPAPS. The check will be submitted, and then you will have access to your product to take it away from the BCP, depending on the intended use. In this particular case, everything was fine. The consignment passed all the checks. We finished inspection, we submitted, and it was released within an hour of inspection. And I think those are my slides. I think the next one is already the poll. So unless anybody wants to ask any questions or just leave it for later, I'll be here.
That would be great for the Q&A section. That would be fabulous. Great. So if we just thank you so much, Patricia. That's really useful. Always interesting to see what happens on the ground. And Patricia will be around later for questions as well. Thank you, Patricia. So poll, this is the last poll's question. Looking at your confidence. Again, this is so important so that we can tailor our engagement and our communications to you. How confident are you that your organisation will be fully prepared for the import controls that will be introduced from the 31st of January 2024? So it's multiple choice. Choose one of your answers, your gut reaction really, and press submit. Just wait for you to finish those. Thank you so much for doing this. It's really helpful for us, helps us to understand where you're at, and will help us plan our future engagements. Great. So next slide, please. Thank you for doing that. So moving on now to groupage, transports, transit and trusted trader. Next slide, please. So the definition of groupage, it's the practice of transporting multiple consignments using the transport method, the same transport method. So this could include a single consignment which combined products of the same commodity type, for example, cheese and butter, which are both dairy, under one health certificate and transporting them together. Or you could have a mixed load consignment where there's various SPS commodity types. For example, dairy and meat products on the same transport. So each with its own health certificate. So this can also include a mix of SPS controlled and non-sanitary and phytosanitary goods. So the border target operating model, as we've been saying repeatedly, is a risk-based approach. You must know your risk category. So for low-risk animal product imports, these are not subject to regular checks at the border. They won't require health certificates. That's for low risk. For medium risk animal product imports, they will require health certificates and be subject to a reduced level of physical or ID checks. Now, the responsibility lies with the trader in terms of understanding their compliance needs and really working to prevent delays by following the correct procedures. So understand your risk categories, know your health certificate requirements, and think carefully about how you're going to transport your goods, how you're going to put those goods together. Are you going to use a consolidation hub or multi-pickup methods? And seek advice from your competent authority in the exporting country as required. Next slide, please. So there's various considerations that traders can take into account before they're importing. Seal requirements. Now, we do get a lot of questions about this, and there is quite a lot of information in the border target operating model document on gov.uk. But just to say, so for sealing requirements, Great Britain does not mandate the use of official seals beyond what is required by the health certificate. Only a few commodities, primarily animal byproduct, require official sealing. This information is detailed in the sanitary guarantees or the export health certificate explanatory notes. For transporting groupage loads, businesses can use their own methods for transporting and differentiating individual consignments within a groupage or mixed loads. But you really need to think about clear labelling and planned loading to facilitate border inspections. And remember that different rules apply for land bridge transits. Certification at the last point of dispatch. Certification for a groupage load typically begins at the last point of dispatch, marking the start of the uninterrupted journey to Great Britain. The certifier should authenticate the origin of the products and ensure compliance with GB's import requirements. We've worked to streamline the health certificates, make it easier, avoid repetition. So for the either or sections, the EHCs for animal products now encompass multiple products of the same type under one certificate. So the either or sections have been replaced with and or so that their applicability has been widened. We're using schedules for additional details. So a schedule supplement in the health certificates is where you can provide extra details when space is limited. And this is particularly useful for products exported from GB or integrated into new exports. The pre-notification and import declaration, if the final transport details are unknown, the term groupage may now be used on health certificates in lieu of these details. But accurate transport details are required in the IPAF's import declaration before arrival in GB. So do stay updated. We are updating the guidance on gov.uk, and we have got some new guidance, updated guidance on importing mixed loads consignments of animal products into GB from the 2024. So visit gov.uk on the following link gov.uk guidance, import groupage or mixed load consignments of animal products into Great Britain from 2024. Next slide, please. So land bridge transits for low risk goods. So for low risk animal products using Great Britain as a land bridge, for EU and EFTA goods, you'll need pre-notification on IPAFs. You'll need to enter and exit via point of entry with a designated BCP from April 2024. Commercial documents, but no health certificates or routine checks are required. You may be subject to non-routine or intelligence-led checks from April 2024, but for rest of world goods, the process remains as before, pending further risk assessment. Our definition of land bridge, just to remind you, land bridge transits are the movement of goods from one third country to another third country via Great Britain. So the goods move through, but do not stay in Great Britain. Next slide. So looking at medium risk land bridge transits. So for EU and EFTA goods, again, you'll need pre-notification on IPAFs, including, because it's a medium risk animal product, you'll need your export health certificate. And from the 30th of April 2024, 100% documentary checks and ID or seal checks on entry or exit, integrity of seal, by PHAs will begin. Checks will be risk-based and check rates will align with those applied to imports into Great Britain. Goods will need to enter and exit via a port with a BCP designated to check them. For the rest of world goods, process is remaining as is for now, pending further risk assessment. Next slide, please. So the Accredited Trusted Trader Scheme, or ATTS, this has been developed to help businesses that import medium risk products as defined by the Border Target Operating Model to Great Britain. So the medium risk products that we deal with in this scheme are products of animal origin, POAO, and animal products, or ABP. It's been designed with a modular framework to provide businesses with flexibility as to how they want to engage with the trusted trader approach. So we have 3 different pilots: checks away from the border, or CAB, certification, logistics, or CLP, and pilot journey assurance. So each module will be piloted first to determine whether it will later be included indefinitely. From January, the pilots for the certification logistics scheme will begin. And from April, around April, pilots for the checks away at the border will begin too. Next slide, please. So we have worked hard to develop as many resources and engagements as possible to help you through these January 31st and April 30th, 2024 SPS control changes. Next slide, please. As you know, we have been working on communication assets in the DEFRA communication team, and we've prepared several, including live animal and animal product BCP maps, export health certificates, pre-notification and border control post leaflets, and these are going to be published very shortly on gov.uk. So you will have those as a very handy reference point and information source. We have the trader readiness survey that's been, we have started to publish It's goes out on a monthly basis, and that's assessing trader awareness of changes to import controls for SPS goods and looking at traders' readiness for implementation. We're also working hard to improve the gov.uk pages and update them to make sure that they're relevant and clear, and traders should find them useful. And the email that we sent you had all the key links for making sure that you're properly prepared for the SPS control changes. So keep that email. It has got all the important links down there. Next slide, please. We have the Business Readiness Forum that we set up fortnightly for GB, EU and EFTA stakeholders. It's a chance for you to receive updates on specific biosecurity, border and trade relating and operational issues, gives you a chance to listen in or to have teach-ins on the programme, and also to raise your own questions. So do join us. We have the email there for the Business Readiness Forum, and if you get in contact with them, they'll sign you up and you'll be able to join. We also have a suite of SPS control webinars, both for animal products and for plant products. So look out for these on Eventbrite, and we're going to continue to guide you through. Next slide, please. So over January, we'll be hosting several SPS control webinars to guide you through, hopefully putting the last pieces of the jigsaw together for you. And we're hoping very much that all this is working towards a stress-free January and April SPS controls scenario. So do keep an eye out on Eventbrite for further details, and be aware that there will be more webinars in January coming up.